Hi, this is Ed Cohen, your broadcast host again on Global TV Talk Show, coming to you from San Diego, California, where it's now just after 8:30 in the morning. We have a wonderful array of experts having to do with elements connected with global mindset, and we're going to learn a lot about that from a very practical point of view, from candidate selection, testing, education of kids, young adults, how things are going on right now in Amsterdam and Holland, as well as in Stockholm, in Sweden, Scandinavia. And we're going to also, I think, have a peek into experience, a lifetime of experience in Hong Kong, and maybe some insight into the strange things going on there right now. So we're going to introduce ourselves very briefly. For those of you who are in the background on silent, as well as those of you visible, please use the interactive chat anytime to communicate with me or anybody on the show. It's wide open. And be careful, because this is live TV. And people will see this a year from now, so watch out. Okay, so let's introduce Lena. Lena from Nim Merchant in Stockholm. Thank you so much for helping me organize this.
No, you're welcome. It was fun.
Okay, great. All right, and Veronique, welcome. Please introduce yourself quickly.
I'm Veronique Haverhals. I'm the founder and managing director of Relocation Services Holland.
Oh, that's great. Now, we're going to hear from you as well, while I adjust myself here. So we're going to hear from you because about this personality test idea. That is a really brilliant idea. So we'll get back to you on that. Jens Nastrom, hello, welcome.
Thank you so much. Great to be here. So I'm a Swedish occupational psychologist and independent researcher, specializing in well-being and effectiveness factors, in particular in professional services. And in March, I just decided to dive in and research on the new work life that we're all facing and entering into as a consequence of COVID-19, of course.
Yeah, what a mess. All the consequences. Mental health is rearing its ugly head in a lot of ways, particularly here in the U.S., I'm sure you know already. But also what's not being talked about is the impact of at home, working from home, and interpersonal relations, not only at home, but between the employee and the boss by Zoom. Strange times. We're going to want to learn from you. Jacqueline, please introduce yourself.
Hi. I am a certified trainer for the test measuring your drives. And a bit of my background prior to that, I was abroad more than 20 years in Asia and in Europe, working for large financial institutions and running the Dutch Chamber of Commerce there. So all along helping companies performing better and expanding their businesses. And now being back in Holland, I really want to dedicate to use my intercultural experience to the benefit of assisting businesses to improve their performance through these tests.
Yeah, thank you. So if we could get back to you during this broadcast about some insight into what's happening in Hong Kong. Sandra Corona, please intro yourself. Please unmute. There we go. Great.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sandra Corona. I live in Saudi Arabia, and I am a global mobility partner. I have created the first global mobility book club to help people increase their knowledge and understanding of global mobility. And I just recently took the ICQ Global Mindset program, so I'm very interested in the topic. Thank you.
What's ICQ?
ICQ is the understanding and knowledge of your values, objectives, cultural understanding of the people. So it starts by understanding yourself, why you think the way you think, why you act like you act. And then once you understand yourself, you can start understanding the people around you.
So regarding your book club, that's really fascinating, and I want to help PR it for you as we get going. But I
Thank you.
did introduce you to Melinda Stallings about positive, what was that? Positive conflict resolution.
Yes.
I think that would be an excellent choice.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on.
Thank
Andrew Bruzzi, thank you very much for joining us. Happy to have you. Andrew is CEO and founder of a company called Vendium Global. So tell our people what that is, please.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for the intro, Ed, and it's great to see many of you. I think I know many of you, and for those that I don't, it's nice to meet you. So Vendium is an artificial intelligence provider for HR and corporate mobility programs, so conversational AI to kind of achieve what we refer to as an augmented workforce of incorporating humans and technology to be more productive and use it to connect people rather than separate them, as it so often does these days.
All right, that's very cool. Now you're tied in with Dr. Velton, aren't you, about cultural awareness? Is that correct?
Yeah, so we're separate organizations, but we work together very, very closely because we've helped them to develop some AI and some other programs that they have, and we're also a very strong champion of their tools. So Dr. Velton, for those who don't know, he leads Go Culture International, and they are an organization that is built to help humans connect in diverse and inclusive environments and also intercultural spaces by using technology. So obviously we have a lot of synergies, so we work together very often, but it runs through an assessment, then training model, then post-assessment to see how people improve. Right now it has a 93% accuracy rate when the industry average is 43. So a bit of a shameless plug for them that if you know anyone that's looking for diversity, equity, inclusion solutions, I stand behind it 100%. So even though it's not our organization, it's the one that we use with all of our clients.
Great. Thank you very much. Olivia, welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. Sorry for being late. My name is Olivia Bahami. I'm the founder and CEO of Prime Communications, which is a global mobility communications firm, and I'm based out of Mississauga, Canada. So I'm probably the only Canadian on the line. So hey, everybody.
Well, it's good. This is an international cast of characters. Okay, and so I'm Ed Cohen. I'm in the public relations business forever, and I've owned an ad agency for a very long time. And part of my own products are relocation guides in the past, recruitment relocation guides, called this whole series called U.S. Bound. The biggest one was California Bound, and it was mirrored on my own relocation from Boston cross country to California. Anyway, we've been doing live meetings forever, beginning in 1984 at the LA Chamber of Commerce and ending nicely, but ending unfortunately this past February 27 in Washington, D.C., where we produced a live event, a training networking event on Embassy Row in Washington. And it was a sold out entity and it was great. But that's the last live program we've been doing. And so I've reinvented myself into doing this. And thank you for participating, frankly. Okay, let's go now to Julie and Chase. Please, one of you take the lead here. Tell us about your school. It's 20 years and successful, and you can do it a lot better than me.
Great. Well, most of the world over this COVID pandemic has experienced some sort of online or distance learning where students are now learning from home. What most of the world has experienced as distance learning over the past 6 months is not what the industry has developed and really perfected over the past 2 decades. My school, the Bridge School, is an online private international school. All of our curriculum is digital, so students can access it from anywhere in the world. They do have the support of a teacher, but they're not stuck on Zoom meetings throughout the entire day, listening to the teacher lecture style to them. One of the things that we have found is that our mobile families across the globe are running into educational barriers. And maybe in your corporate world, you've seen that, where you might have a candidate that has a family, and because of the lack of education options in the part of the globe that you would like to relocate them, they've turned down the job. And so what we offer is a solution to be able to keep stability for the students, no matter where they live. So if it's a short-term assignment, or maybe it is an employee who flies in and flies out, we offer a flexible schedule for students so that they could potentially take a 2 to 3 week freeze on their curriculum when mom or dad is back home visiting and they don't have to worry about being gone to school all day. So we really want to be that solution as your employees are moving across the globe, and education and family issues could be a potential barrier for them.
All right, Chase.
Yeah, we are really excited, as Julie mentioned, about what we're able to do, creating that flexibility that these families really need as the jobs are transitioning. And as you know, we have our own little niche in 2019 of digital education, and the entire world has joined us, and we've kind of gone mainstream. So we are really excited to be a solution to a lot of the problems, both with the current situation that we're in and just in general life. When life gets back to normal, we solve a lot of problems for families. One of the benefits, I think, a lot of people choose to go international to experience the culture, to experience the place that they're landing. And education so many times has become that barrier of, I don't have the flexibility that I wanted. But with the Bridge School, that flexibility is now available again. If you want to take a long weekend to go experience the place that you have put your family, you have that option. So we're really excited and really happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
You bet. Lisbeth, tell us a little bit about your day-to-day work.
Okay, thank you. I'm based in the Netherlands, and I'm working for Relocation Services Holland. Veronique was already referring to it. And I'm working as a tax advisor, and I assist our clients, employers, and their cross-border employees with the tax and social security matters they have to deal with when they come to the Netherlands to work here.
Thank you. Okay, Veronique, tell us about this test.
Okay, the personalities. I think the best is that Jacqueline does that, because she's an expert in it.
Yeah.
So that's better, probably. But
Okay,
I would love to do it, but I think you're better with her.
Okay, well, we'll stick with you for a moment. So about your experience in Holland, the impact of COVID on your operations, what's been happening?
As everybody in the mobility industry, it's not a very nice situation, but we managed to develop some new products and to manage the team as working a little bit different, so that we can keep up with what's going on.
Okay, so are companies actually still relocating people into and out of Holland today?
They are still active. They are still. We have two service lines. We have immigration and relocation. So you can understand that the immigration is always going on, because the companies have to be compliant with everything, with the laws in the Netherlands. So that's a stable factor. And of course, the relocation, that's changing the most, because like house huntings and searching for schooling, that's changing.
Yeah.
So we do more with remote viewings, etc.
Yeah. So what about this tax benefit, 30%? Would you like to explain what that is?
Lisbeth?
Yes, I will answer that. The 30% facility is a tax benefit for employees who are highly skilled and who are recruited from outside the Netherlands to work in the Netherlands. If all conditions are met, 30% of the gross salary of such an employee can be considered to be tax-free. That's the main and most important benefit. So only 70% of the gross salary will be taxed, which is, of course, a nice benefit for these international employees.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah, it is. And it's applicable for a maximum period of 5 years. There could be some deduction if an individual has been staying in the Netherlands during the last 25 years, but in general, it's for 5 years. So it's a nice benefit to come to the Netherlands to work and live here.
Lena, in Sweden, it's been in the news, of course, that the COVID response is different in your area. Would you please do a deep dive for us on that?
Sure. I think the one interesting thing is that we're the only country in the world that kept the schools open, which is actually unexpected for us. I think a lot of parents were expecting a different outcome of that. And right now, we just extended our travel ban. So non-essential travel shouldn't happen until October 31st, which was communicated at the end of last week. So that was a setback. For our clients that are bringing talents in, it doesn't, at this point, create a big problem. Can you hear me properly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But you can't do real live interviews. So I think we've actually been practicing for the past 6 months of handling conversations online. So I don't think it's going to be a huge problem, but it's still, of course, difficult to move to a country. I know Procter & Gamble puts a great deal of pride in saying yes to a position in a country where you have never been. But for most companies and people, that's an unusual approach.
So is this the same kind of practice that's going on now in Norway and Finland, across Scandinavia?
All countries right now have the schools open. Some right now in Denmark, the students are protesting because they say that online, they have partial online education, and they say it makes them lazy. So they have a friendly strike at the moment. But Denmark in general, they're doing quite well. Their numbers are low, and it has been for a while. I would say the same about Finland and Norway. The schools are open, and the numbers are quite low. So it's a difference. The Swedish numbers are higher.
So may I ask you, are any of the classes held outside, or is everything inside?
A little bit, but we're pretty much as far north as you can get. So we have a short window of opportunity before it gets too cold. And I think already today, probably it wouldn't be an ideal solution.
I see. Dr. Jens Nastrom, could you comment on this, please, from your perspective?
Well, what I see in terms of research is that some students are doing better in remote study, and some of them are doing worse, which is quite interesting as well, because that's what we see in the workforce. And the majority is actually doing very well working in remote. It might be boring, you might be missing your colleagues, but in terms of performance, it's intact. When you look at levels of exhaustion, it's actually lower. People have better work-life balance, but it's varied. You can't really generalize. So you have a minority that is not performing as well as before. And they are typically junior people that are new in work life, and they don't have the deep work habits. So one needs to be careful when one is generalizing the effects of lockdown and remote studying and working.
So what kind of tips, this is not rehearsed as you could tell, what kind of tips are you willing to share publicly here, advice to parents who are getting to know each other in different ways, especially with working from home and kids who everyone's trying to get online probably at the same time, issues related to that?
Sure. I think in general, we all need to be curious about self-leadership, be curious about time management techniques, how we're starting our days, how we're ending our days, how we're pacing our days, how we're taking enough breaks. And then also to support each other, to have open, honest conversations with how we're doing, sharing best practices. Doesn't matter if you're a student or a teacher or if you're a colleague, but just show interest in each other and share challenges that we are facing, and then get input from others. So you have a kind of reflective process and try to develop your self-leadership. In general, when we lead each other in this situation, I think you need to have a more sort of socially engaged approach to it. If you're a teacher or if you're a colleague, because that's what's missing. When we're not meeting each other physically, the social life, the social connection, cohesion disappears. So you need to overcompensate for that by showing genuine interest in others.
So with that in mind, and thank you for that tee up, I'm going to say I want everybody to know each other, so the networking thing works this way. I know it's a little weird internationally by this, but you can type in the interactive chat your email or website or LinkedIn and just share it with everybody. And everybody should do that during this broadcast because it's the connections leading forward from today that'll prove the economic value of us continuing to do that. Thank you, Lena. Okay, so let's go to Jacqueline Baud. Thank you so much for doing this. May I ask you, please, just very briefly, tell us about your experience, most recent experience, and your current insight about China clamping down on Hong Kong. I've been in Hong Kong a few times, and we used to print our print magazines in Shenzhen, as a matter of fact, a long time ago, and then had them shipped into LA. So, and that was a long time ago, and it was just vibrant and beautiful then. And so is that going to survive? Is Hong Kong going to survive? Will there be more problems, or just everything's transitioning? Of course, but how bad will it get, do you think?
Well, just to get this straight, I moved out of Hong Kong 3 years ago, and I'm now in the Netherlands, but I'm still in the board of the Netherlands Hong Kong Business Association, so still related. And what we saw already for the last now 5 years is that China started to get more and more grip on Hong Kong. We had the stories, the booksellers who were, one of them who were publishing critical issues about the Beijing government, and one of them was arrested in Shenzhen with a Swedish passport. So Wall Street Journal journalists who didn't get their visa renewed. So the new security law is just the last step in this whole saga, I'm afraid. And the only thing what I would like to see and say is that I hope that business will still flourish, because it's really in the interest of the people in Hong Kong and also ultimately of Beijing. At least that business will continue, and the advantages are still there, tax-wise, and for the financial markets are there. It still stands, but of course it's a big development, and it is sad to see.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, the personality test.
Yeah. Especially in this whole situation, when you work from home, as we discussed already before, it is really difficult as a manager to keep your employees motivated and happy, and at the same time keeping your team productivity up. But of course, this challenge always exists online and offline. But when there is no face-to-face contact, of course, this is aggravated. But to correct you a little bit, Ed, if I may, it is not a personality test. This test measures what drives people. And in order to motivate your employees, this is extremely important to understand. And it's different for everyone. For example, if you have Monica in HR, for who harmony and contact to other people is super important, she really needs to get perhaps that extra phone call to tell her how well she did, right? And for, say, Peter, who is a salesperson and he's very results oriented, he needs to have clear goals to stay focused and motivated. So to get an insight into the needs of Monica and Peter. You need to be able to understand their motivation and the way they will interpret what you say, because, and this is important, this is different for Monica and Peter. Each one will interpret what you say in their own way. This is because people look at the environment, the team in this case, from their own perspective, so with their own, say, colored glasses. And fortunately, we already had an in-depth tool, which is called Real Drives, to help companies measure and properly understand the motivation of both the individual employees and the team as a whole. And this gives also a customized dashboard with practical tips and tools. So from this existing Real Drives tool, we were able to develop a box with tools for a manager who needs to keep his team motivated in a working from home situation. And this is a very practical tool which gives you clear insight into what motivates each employee and the appropriate management style for you towards this specific employee, and also how to manage the team as a whole in a very good way. And it gives you furthermore specific tips for effective communication, which, as mentioned before, varies per employee. It's a very quick test. You only need to complete a short questionnaire. It takes you 10 minutes, all web-based. And the big advantage I see is that the results are mutually beneficial for the employee and the company. Because of the insight the manager gains in the team members will be more motivated and happier, which will have a positive effect on the output and the performance per employee. So to cut it short, a win-win situation, I think.
Yeah. Jens, could you comment on that, please?
Yeah, well, certainly I think this could be extra valuable in this situation that we're in now, because you lose a lot of course, understanding and interaction when you are in remote work. So having this sort of understanding and precision in leading the team, I think could be really, really helpful and facilitate also better conversations and supervising processes. So we need to be curious about everything we're doing now, especially if you look at the talent management cycle. The recruiting criteria could be different. How you're leading people could be different. How you're training people will certainly be different, because you need a different set of skills. So this is really the time to be curious. And that's why I decided to dive in to study this, because I realized everything I learned for the 15 past years may not apply anymore.
Yeah.
Andrew,
Andrew, where does technology come into all this?
Oh gosh, do you have a few more hours? I'm just teasing. No, so it's fascinating because I was having a conversation yesterday. We use a lot of terms and things like that of leading through the new normal, and saying that we're leading through the new abnormal, where something like this, right, would never be able to be possible as efficiently, although it would be very nice to shake all of your hands, right? So we're being conditioned, and I think more importantly, the future generation is being conditioned to use technologies far sooner than they would have been introduced to them. So for a child that may be in elementary school, they may be 10 years old, they're now using technologies that people in corporate workforces just have started using in the past, realistically, 5-10 years. So just in something as simple as communication, it's becoming much more synonymous to use these technologies. And then obviously the addition of what we refer to as workforce augmentation products of like artificial intelligence and telephony, where you can have bots that are working with your team members. So a great example is people will use this for fun sometimes, but there's something called a deep fake, where you can have an artificial intelligence look like a human, talk like a human, specifically a famous human. There was a notable case where someone showed up to a Zoom meeting as Elon Musk and had a full conversation with them. The only thing they didn't match was the voice. But so that's more Star Trek-y. But I'd say the more productive piece of technology integration is much more around communication and how we do it effectively. And then obviously the workforce monitoring to make sure that our folks are not just watching TV all day and just showing up for the Zoom meetings.
So, Lena, do you have a robot in your office?
I wish. I am the robot in my office.
If you had a robot, what would you have it do?
Oh, many things. I don't know. Pick up after me, maybe? No, but I agree with Andrew there that it would be nice for the robots. And I'm looking forward to the chatbots become a little bit savvier than they are today. And I think it's going to take a few more years, perhaps. But when that happens, it will be great. But to a large extent, we have to work with the tech tools that we have available at the moment. And we also need to master them in a good way. And we touched upon this, Andrew, in the Vendium talks back in June. Was it May or June? A little bit how we kind of crashed into remote work. It was very sudden for everybody. We weren't prepared, but it was a health emergency. So it was a little bit like the Wild West. Everybody ran home and we had to figure it out from there. 6 months down the line, we've learned a lot. We know how to video conference. It's something you can people have PhDs in video conferencing. We have made a guide with a lot of research now, which Olivia, who's also on the call, has helped me because she's an amazing writer. So I've done the research and everything. And Olivia helped me decipher it so it's readable also. So I'm happy to share that guide with all of you. But I think now we're in the next phase. We need to think about compliance and taxes. And one thing is working from home. Another thing is working from a coffee shop. And that's something you need to regulate. It may be suitable in some instances, not in others. And we have to look at the laws and the employer responsibilities, and not least is how to maintain the mental health situation for people and see who's who, like Jacqueline is working with, who can handle working from home, who is self-motivated, who doesn't need everyday interaction. How do we know how people are feeling and what can we do to safeguard their well-being? And that's where all the sort of practical matters come in. If you have a hybrid situation, when some people are allowed to go into the office because they might have to, and maybe the people who have the benefit of online schooling could go to work, because it is hard and a lot of people are struggling working at home with a loud spouse that I have, for instance. And thank God for schools being open, is all I can say. But it's also challenging. So while the overwhelming response that we get from our clients is that things have worked much better than we all expected, that now 6 months in, we really need to think about this long term, and we need to skill up, reskill, and really think deeply about how to do this in the best way.
So I want to get to Olivia in just a sec. Julie and Chase, educators. I don't know what I'm saying anymore, but you run a school. But, how are you adapting your curriculum to deal with work from home, work from anywhere? Because you're already doing it. But.
Yeah, that's the greatest thing about our school is that we've been doing this for 20 years and our teachers have been remote for, 20 years. I started in online education in 2003. So I personally have been in the distance learning field for 17 years. And everything you guys are saying is exactly right. And it's no different for students and teachers. Like, that transition to working from home is definitely doable, but you need to make sure and teach that as a corporation. You can't just expect that everyone has the tools to be successful working in their home environment. Like you said, there can be many distractions, family members, there can be poor internet, there can be mental health. So a big thing that we have always done is we spend a good week in training our employees on the front end on how to be successful working from home. So how do you set up a home office? How do you balance working from home versus your needs that are, calling you across the room? So there's a balance here, and it can't be expected that all employees and students know how to do that. We really have to train them, just like you would train them in other aspects of their job.
Chase?
Yeah, I think I would echo what Julie said, but the piece I'll add is we have to be careful when we're talking about the fact that we did, as a worldwide entity, we did online education this spring, when in reality, we didn't. What we did was emergency distance learning, and that's not the same thing as what the Bridge School offers, which is a true digital solution. Here's the difference. If you don't have the right infrastructure up front, you're not providing the right tools, the experience for the student is completely different. For instance, we have both full-time online and hybrid options. Our hybrid options, we already had the right pieces in place for the students that came to a brick and mortar site. And on Friday, when they left the school, not knowing what would happen because of the COVID, Monday morning, they logged in and didn't miss a beat. How many schools can say that from a Friday afternoon leaving the campus to Monday morning waking up and logging in to not miss a beat? That's pretty special. But it's because we had 15 years of experience telling us you've got to have the right pieces in place up front. It's the same for business. The businesses that were successful during the spring had already taken the time and energy ahead of time to put those communication tools into place, to put the right norms and expectations into place. So we were really, really proud of our staff for being able to do that really at the drop of a hat. And it was really exciting for us to say, our kids aren't missing academically. They're still getting a full education, not just some version of emergency remote learning.
Yeah. Jens, from a psych point of view, this sounds like it's the answer for schools everywhere.
Yeah. I was really thrilled to hear what Julie and Chase were sharing, because it definitely applies so much to the workplace in general. It's not enough to just have everyone sent home and then to have the internet. You got to have the training. You got to adapt. I think these guys should start a side business training companies in how to do this, to have such deep, valuable experience. But what I also think is important in this situation is to recognize that we have to learn, adapt very quickly. And the best thing we can do, I think, in this situation is to rely on experts. Regardless of what we're talking about here, if you're talking about relocation or getting education for your kids as you're relocating or whatever it is, you have to rely upon experts that are staying on top of it, that are really following the developments, because, what we did yesterday doesn't apply anymore. So I think this is very exciting.
Lena, back to you. I want you to take charge here now for the next few minutes and talk to us about the Swedish way of doing things. Joanne and I were at the Euro meeting in Stockholm several years ago, and we stayed for a few days. So my Joanne has been in the travel industry, worked as an executive with Expedia for a very long time. And she called on, I tagged along, I was a trailing spouse. We called on an Expedia representative in Stockholm while we were there. It was really interesting. And she took us on a boat cruise all around, and it was like a wonderful time. But I didn't learn anything about the people. I just learned that it was a beautiful place. And I forget what time of year we were there, but it was very nice, fresh and clean and safe. So give us a quick insight about the Swedish way of handling crisis and taking care of each other.
Yeah, okay, that's a great question. In Sweden, there is a great deal of trust between people. So we don't have the laws to force people to do things. People are expected to understand and care for their fellow man. So a recommendation is like a weak word in other languages, but in Sweden that means you should or you must. And that was kind of a confusion in the beginning. And I think that if we look at the way the Swedes have handled COVID, it's not too different from many other countries, apart from we have never had a lockdown. We've always been allowed to go outside. And the restaurants have been open, but very few people could visit. And, so there have been other kinds of restrictions that have made the situation quite similar to the rest of Europe. We also haven't been allowed to travel, or for a while we couldn't only travel like an hour and a half or 2 hours outside of the metropolitan or where you lived. And most of what the Swedes did related to the capacity within the medical services. So they talked a lot about flattening the curve in the beginning because they couldn't get a great deal of people sick at the same time, because that would have been a problem. But they have recently taken away, they had field hospitals and extra resources brought in to take care of people if they got sick and it's not needed, and they have packed up. Now, unfortunately, like a great deal of other countries around Europe, people are starting to wonder about a second wave. But one actually really comforting thing that I saw today was the WHO that said that asymptomatic people do not spread the virus. And that's something that was just communicated this afternoon. And that changes a lot, I would say.
So that is wonderful news.
I know. It's almost like a dream.
Wow. It's like, wow, is that like a miracle?
Yeah, it does sound like a miracle, but we don't know yet. Some people are quite hesitant to believe in that. But that would change things. That would change a lot, I think. But that being said, if we think about what we have all collectively experienced in the past 6 months, we have learned many, many things. We have learned that there's flexibility. There's flexibility in the workplace. There are new ways of doing things. And if it's necessary, we can change the way we do things very, very quickly. And I think one of the nicest things that we have learned is that everybody is an essential worker. It started being doctors, but now hairdressers are definitely essential workers, and the people running schools are essential workers, and restaurants and truck drivers. Everybody is needed to make this a society that it's nice to live in. And I think we have a greater appreciation for that.
Yeah, I know I'm essential, but I think mothers are more essential than I am. So, Andrew, would you agree to that?
Absolutely. Although, Ed, you are absolutely essential. You're keeping us all together and pulling us along. I think there's a new standard of, we talk about work-life balance, but now we're in a stage of work-life harmony. And who better to harmonize than mothers?
Yeah. Olivia, so how are companies, through your good offices, how are companies changing the way they're communicating?
Well, that's a loaded question. It depends. I have clients that have been very good with their content marketing, creating communications for their audience. What I mean by audience is not just their clients, but prospects and people in general. Companies have taken, at least my clients, RMCs are particularly the ones that I work with, and some service mobility providers. They've taken the time to really use this lull, because some of them are going through a lull, right? A period of slow activity, to really put content at the forefront, creating communications that really speak to their value proposition, what they're doing to keep their employees safe, what they're doing to keep clients safe going forward. Because this period of COVID, it has just come upon us like out of the blue, right? It's been like a sandstorm, came out of nowhere, and now we have to deal with it. So one of the things that has resonated with me so far in this session is the theme around being proactive. And that's what it seems like, right? We humans have such a great way of adapting to what's coming at us, and doing and moving forward in such a way that it helps us to all come together, be better, stay together, and really improve everything. And for some companies, they've been doing really well during the age of COVID, and some have been, they've lost business, they've furloughed employees, as you all know. So it's an interesting time, but I think now more than ever, creating communications that are impactful is very important for now and going forward.
So I'd like to throw this out to our faculty here, which you all are. Veronique, if I may ask you this is not rehearsed. So since Brexit happened, just before that, I remember companies were scurrying across the North Sea there into Amsterdam and Rotterdam. Are they still doing that? I mean, what's happened since Brexit? It's sort of gone away, right?
It's quite quiet on that front because nobody is moving. Everybody stays where they are, and even big companies like Unilever are going back to London with their headquarters. So it's a little bit strange situation. It's there are companies but mostly it's small companies that move over a couple of people to establish them on the mainland, that they have an entrance to the mainland and just stay their headquarters in London.
So
just their headquarters in London, yes.
Yeah. So let's move on quickly because this can go on all day, but I think we all have other things to do. But the tax hit, the compliance thing of people working from home. This is a strange one, isn't it? I mean, how is this going to get solved? I'm not a tax person at all. So I just think about that and say, how are companies going to do that? Is it going to be one big tax holiday and just forget about it? Move on, wait till the things get better, and then bump up everybody's taxes to take care of it all? Because I think dealing with this strangeness is crazy making.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I can answer that question as I'm working as a tax consultant. A change in the work situation will also always result in the change of the tax position, and for each individual and each situation, it should be determined what the actual tax consequences are for the employee and the employer, because it could be that the taxes will be due in the country the individual will work from home instead of the country the employer is located and where the employee normally works. So it is not it's not advisable to wait until everything is normal again, but it should be taken care of at this moment already, and not when everything is normal again, and the employees might go to the office or to work again. So it's an important topic to take care of.
Yeah, Andrew?
Yes, sir. Yeah, no, that's a fantastic point. And I think that, and actually even back to Olivia's point as well, that we need to be more proactive with things. So I'll say candidly, and I know this is being recorded, but I'll still say it out loud, that most of our clients have a tax compliance issue for remote workers because they will, especially in the mobility space, they're looking at remote workers of, sure, you can work from anywhere, and they don't, and I'm speaking for the US specifically, that they don't always adjust their tax home. So if their role is now based in a different location, that's where they should be taxed. Now it's forcing them to look at this of, okay, now we have remote workers that we may be based in San Francisco, but we have our employees living in Dallas or potentially in another country. How are they being taxed? What immigration compliance issues are coming up because they are now working remote from another country? And these are factors that they're being forced to look at, where we're having to pivot not only in our business operations models, but also our compliance models. So that was a fantastic question that you brought up.
It's an interesting one too, because when you talk about immigration, I think the COVID, it was sort of brought to light a lot of companies that are sending out people for work on tourist visas. And when you very quickly have to exit in country, that can be a problem. And it's the same thing goes with tax. And I think people would do well to be a little bit question the different e-visas. I know there's one that it's talked about a lot. It's the e-visa to Estonia that gives you the Schengen. The thing is, you can travel in Schengen, you're not allowed to work. And there's a Croatian one that just popped up just yesterday, maybe. It's the same thing. So I think companies really need to look very carefully at compliance from both an immigration point of view, but especially from a tax point of view. Even between municipalities, the tax rates can differ. And it's hard to know where people are. And it's been difficult already. And you guys in the Netherlands are well aware of this because you are in such close proximity with several other countries and crossing borders all the time. It's really an art to stay on the right line of that. So the tax consultants will be busy for sure.
So Lena, in Sweden, women have always been in power positions, right?
I would say so. It's a very dual career household kind of country. I think 97% of women work at least part-time. So, and what happens to expats that move here, they understand pretty quickly that both people in the couple need to work because the tax rates are so high. So it started as equality, and now it's a financial situation that needs to be. It's hard to live on one salary here.
So, in exchange for the high tax rates, there's a wonderful array of services available, isn't there?
I would say so. I mean, there are definitely good things that come. I think maybe 76% is a little over the top, but that's a different story. We also have a very high VAT, but it is what it is. I can't change it. But we have excellent daycare. It's fantastic. It's phenomenal. We have pretty good schools. We have some good universities. I couldn't be the judge of the medical services, but from what I hear, they're good in any situation. They have really good care for old people, and now they've been getting a lot of criticism because the elders have died. But without COVID, I think they have quite a nice life. At least that's my experience, my personal experience.
Yeah, thank you very much. Veronique, could you describe the same kind of situation? Tax services in Netherlands?
No, I think it's well organized in the Netherlands too. We have, I think, excellent healthcare, and we have a lot of facilities for people coming in. As we speak about working for knowledge migrant workers coming to the Netherlands, they get a visa that the spouse who's coming with them can work also in the Netherlands without any limits. So I think that's special. So if they come to the Netherlands, both can start working. We have daycares, and what we always experience with the SMEs coming to the Netherlands, when they start here, they are a little bit, they don't know exactly how it works. But when they are here, they feel very free. It's very safe. They can cycle to everything they want. Everything, even all little villages or houses together. They all have a playing guard for the children, etc. So everything is very organized. And when they have to leave, they always regret it very much, and they want to stay. Because the life in the Netherlands is very free and very easy and accepting to other people. So that's, I think, a nice thing.
I think I want to go back.
Yeah. That's the Netherlands enough.
I don't know. Things are going on here I don't like. So, Jacqueline, if you could just summarize what you've learned here today, and if you want to please just speak for a couple of moments about anything you wish. I'd like to hear from you.
Well, I just, first of all,
you're on mute. Yeah.
Sorry. First of all, to still add to the thing of women working here. I think in Holland, many women work, but most of the women work part-time, and in a lot of cases in lower positions than the men. So also here, although we're on a relatively good level, similar to Sweden, there are still steps to make here as well. And to say what I personally have learned today, first of all, I love the whole multicultural, broad view and complete mix of topics we saw passing by. I was fascinated by the schooling, which exists already for 20 years. That is super, and also by their idea of having companies. Or people going to school, in their case, students, giving them a training first before you start the whole thing, because I think that's an excellent idea. Because we say all the time there is you work from home and it's so quiet and you miss the interaction, but at the same time you also often have to deal with people in your households who are there all the time. So that's sort of another situation you have to deal with as well. So I can imagine that a bit of training for that is really a good idea. So I must say I really enjoyed it.
Great, thanks. Jens, okay, let's have some training.
Sorry, I dropped out there.
Yeah, let's have some training in psychological dealings on how,
absolutely.
how we can communicate better.
Yeah, sure. I certainly think this is a great time to reflect and check in with ourselves. And so things are changing with work and school and so on. And we can review. I mean, for us, it's an incredible time. You can work at home in whatever clothes you like. You can listen to any music you like. You can take control over what you're eating for lunch, how you're exercising. I mean, there are lots of great opportunities. You can connect as a family. What I would like to suggest for people is to make sure to get analog quality activities when they're not on screens. So bring out the board games, the guitar, make that sourdough pizza, do things together with family and friends. So it's wonderful to connect the way we're doing now on screen, but make sure you get enough of quality analog activities as well.
Thank you. So Olivia, you're a writer, of course in PR, but a writer. Do you recommend people take writing lessons from you or from anyone?
Lena, where's Lena? Oh, there she is. Did you say something to add about this?
No.
Conversation that you and I had?
Yeah, no, I didn't.
So this is interesting because Lena and I had a conversation about maybe a couple of weeks ago, and she says that, Olivia, you should consider doing some courses, like actually teaching how to write, to help other people write. And I thought, wow, I never thought about that, but it's interesting. So you're asking me if I should, and you're asking me if I should teach people how to write? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't know. I'm just channeling Lena, I think.
I think you are. I called Olivia and told her this about a week ago.
So we chatted about this, very funny, and she gave me this business proposition / idea. So I could, in principle, if there's enough interest, and there's particularly in our industry, the mobility industry, corporate relocation, it's something that I could definitely do. I think people I could help people write better, because I think a lot of times they're confused about how to do it, but it's really not that difficult. You just need to have the proper framework in place to really organize yourself and make sure that you're understanding what the context of your piece is, whatever it is that you're writing about, and just keeping on track. So maybe I will do that, Ed. I might just do that, and Lena. So I'll have to come back to you.
So I want you to be sure you connect with Sandra, because we just had a similar conversation last week. So Julie, what kind of practical courses are you providing as to not learning a trade, not like shop or whatever, but I mean, practical courses that students are learning for immediate application outside of school?
Right. Well, we have K through 12th grade curriculum, and we offer both honors level. We offer AP courses. We are internationally accredited. But some of the niche things that students get interested in, I think it's so important. Like Jens was talking about, like you need to find a community that you're interested in. So we offer a lot of electives for students in areas of coding and game design, fashion design. We really try to hit their interests. So it's not just they're sitting in front of a screen all day long, feeling like they're reading unending text or listening to a teacher lecture over Zoom. We have marine science. So all of these different areas that students really have a true interest in, they can really dig down deeper into this. And then the other thing is our curriculum provider. We use a curriculum provider named Strong Mind, and they have developed a social emotional learning curriculum that is really important right now. There's a big push, at least in the United States. This is worldwide, but really a big push in the United States that I've noticed to really be aware of students' social emotional needs. And so this curriculum is little bite-sized pieces that our teachers can give the students in like 5 to 10 minute increments that deal with some of the things that they are trying to go through in this world right now, and maybe not have the tools to deal with everything, whether it is social media or whether it's being isolated at home. So we're implementing that as well. And it really is something that not only students can benefit from, but I think adults can benefit from that too.
Lena, what do you think of all that? It sounds like it's extremely practical.
It does sound great. I think you are definitely onto something really, really important about how much training you really need to successfully work from home, or even in the future work from anywhere, where so many companies are now talking about remote first, or at minimum hybrid solutions. So that sounds like something I'd really like to talk to you about. I think we have a call set up this week, right? Or maybe next week.
So Lena, as we come to a close here, and we're going to go around the screen quickly, but Lena, are there special healthy foods that you like, particular to Stockholm or to Sweden?
I don't know if it's particularly Swedish, but one of the things that we have worked on quite hard in our office, we have a holistic coach. So we have these Monday motivation sessions, and we deal with all sorts of things from mental health to physical health. So, how to deal with anxiety during a pandemic and self-leadership. And one of the really fun ones was how to eat for energy. And that what you eat will also determine the performance you have that day. And should you drink coffee, and how should you drink coffee? It's actually a whole science around that. And so we have dug pretty deeply into these things, but I can't say that they're particularly Swedish. There are some berries with lots of antioxidants, but I think it's more of a healthy, energetic lifestyle that we're pretty focused on that, actually.
Yes, I've already had 2 cups of Java. So, but yesterday we went out for a lunch along the beach, beautiful here in San Diego. We had acai, which is a Brazilian thing, and sat outside in the beautiful sun and air. It's like my immune system got spiked, I'm sure.
I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
It's a very healthy bowl. Yeah.
So Andrew Bruzzi, for those of you who don't know his background, I don't mean to embarrass you, my friend, but you ran the relocation program for Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
So just tell just a little bit, apply to right now, thinking back on that experience, what's the number 1 or number 2 things that you've taken away and then moved on to where you are right now?
Sure. Yeah, there's a number of things, but I would say probably the biggest piece is operating at scale, right? That we all operate in our own organizations, and we'll generally adapt to whatever we have to do there. But a great example of what we would do at Walmart is, even if we're designing a technical solution, is measure something down to the number of clicks it takes. Because a couple clicks is insignificant, right? Especially in a smaller organization. But if you're doing it at scale, if you have 2.3 million associates worldwide, those number of clicks associate to dollars. So you need to correct those quickly. And I'd say another thing is kind of corporate culture. So Walmart has a very strong corporate culture, and that's something that I've even adopted with Vendium, where here, when we're talking about all of these things of how to keep our people motivated, my house, and even when I was out of state for a while, had been the new headquarters for Vendium. So we have like a sound system set up. We have a lot of seating where everyone comes and has fun. So I even have spare bedrooms for my team that often stay here. So it becomes a very startup culture that we're able to, because we're a small but mighty team of 6. But it's those types of things that I'd say that Walmart kind of instilled in me, that you really just take care of your people, you focus on the team, and that you are always a member of something bigger, that you're a member of a tribe. We hit on a lot of diversity, equity, inclusion topics today, where how to include people, how to make them productive in whatever they're doing. And I think as mobility leaders, that's a way for us to pivot and focus in on more things. And because tribe is always important, that the enemy is always outside of the gate. We need to focus on our people internally and also what's internal to our heart. So how we make those be as productive, so we could be as productive as workforce leaders.
Cool. Wow. Again, this is unrehearsed, so thanks for revealing.
Soapbox.
No, thanks for revealing all that. So, Jacqueline, you're back in Holland after 20 years in Asia. How was repatriation for you?
That's an interesting question. It is, I think, in many aspects, sometimes it's easier to move to another foreign country than moving back to your own country after you left off with a boyfriend to Singapore, in my case. But of course, I must say it's been good. For me personally, and for my husband, and for one of the children, it was more difficult. For them, especially if they relocate. One was 16 years old. Well, one takes it very easily, and the other doesn't. And of course, that has an impact on you as well. That was very difficult for me too. Fortunately, now he's slowly settling in and doing well.
Oh, good. Well, thank you for sharing. Chase, do you teach, do you provide a course for expat kids on how to deal with a change like that?
We don't have an official course set up and built out specifically, but that is something that is an integral part of the entire cohesive ecosystem. Our teachers talk about it, the ability that the families have direct say into the schooling experience speaks into that, all the way from our administration down to those that help get kids enrolled and answer the questions via the chat box. That's just a part of who we are. So while it's not technically a classroom course, it definitely is ingrained deep within our roots.
Thank you. Jens, back to you in summary. All this sounds like it's leadership stuff, isn't it? I mean, these people on the program today are leaders.
Yeah, we all need to be leaders. I think for me, the key takeaway was perhaps being proactive. So sometimes you might think that not taking action is not taking action, but in this case, when everything is changing, that is also an approach or an action. So on the one hand, we mustn't be rash. On the other hand, we need to be proactive. We need to lead ourselves and each other in this situation. But if we're doing it in a reflective way, I think there are great promises for the environment, for us, for our health, for our kids. So in this world tragedy, it's also very exciting times.
So Lisbeth, back to you regarding the dreaded tax issue. should we all just toughen up and call our tax advisor?
Yes, of course. If there is a change, of course, it's an important topic to take care of, but not the most nice topic, obviously, for a lot of people to deal with.
Great, thank you.
But happy to help.
Oh yeah, and I welcome you back too. So Olivia, from a Canadian point of view, are you going to be involved in the CERC program?
So I was actually planning on attending the conference, but I decided to attend the ERC conference, which will be happening in about a month or so, a month and a half. But I do have a friend who sits on the CERC board, so we will get some good information that comes out of that session. I'll be sure to share.
Yeah, great. So Sandra, do you have any more books for your book club or new members?
Well, I have quite a lot of many books I can tell you about. There's one called The Cultures and Organizations by Hofstede and Menkoff. There's the Human Resources Management in the Middle East by Rowan Budar. There's the one that a lot of people know, which is the Global Talent Management by Professor Collins. One that I found interesting that I had not paid attention to a single detail, but I will not say because you have to read it. It's called The Lead Like an Ally by Julie Kratz. Interesting, very nice. And there's one called Group Dynamics as well. So there's quite a lot of books. There's so many topics out there. And but I can tell you right now that the topic that a lot of people are more interested in is in Comp and Ben.
Comp and Ben, all right.
Yes.
So, and you're in touch with our friend Sandrine in Dubai?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah,
she is amazing. Very bright person.
Yeah,
yes.
She's an expert. Okay. Veronique, thanks so much for being on this program. It's nice to meet you. I'd like to learn more about what's going on in Amsterdam. A very long time ago, we produced one of our live meetings at the Hilton.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the exact name of it, but it was on the water on some canal. Yeah. I think it was in 04 or 05, but I don't remember. Yeah. Anyway, thank you all for being on Global TV. I welcome you to come back. I'll keep you informed. Lena, thank you so much for being my leader here. And I don't remember whether I covered all the points that you and I had communicated about. So if I forgot to ask you something, please speak up.
No, I mean, what we talked about was the future of work and a little bit like how you have to have a system and think about systematically go through all the components to create a good whole. And that takes experts, it takes a lot of research and, a cross-functional team with psychologists and legal and tax and cross-cultural to make it a good situation. I just like Jens, I think we have an amazing opportunity here to make some really nice things for the future that will be enjoyable, especially for employees, but also employers.
Yeah, that's great. So tomorrow, our program, Global TV, is interviewing a U.S. guy. He's actually from Germany, but living in Atlanta. His name is Christian Hofferly. He's known as the Culture Guy. So he's going to be our guest, and we're going to be talking about cross-cultural things, of course. And then the next day, September 2, I'm interviewing a guy I've known for about 10 years. He's moved from position to position, but he's now the HR director for the Americas for a software company called SUSE. All right. And so we're going to be talking about their open source platform and how they attract people and relocations and his own view. So that's really going to be interesting. And then on September 15, it's going to be a very special broadcast that I have the honor of hosting and moderating. It's to honor a longtime relocation coordinator, Darden, D-A-R-D-E-N, Darden Restaurant Corporation. Nancy Carter is retiring after being with the corporation 48 years in the role of relocation management. And so her friends approached me to help pull this together. And so I'm delighted. And ERC as an organization is going to participate heavily in this. And it's wide open. There's no charge or anything. So everyone will hear all about this in the coming days because we'll get the PR out. We're going to be producing, as I come to a close here, Global TV is going to be producing 300 programs between now and next Christmas, not this Christmas, but next Christmas. And we're looking for sponsors as well as speakers. So, and topics. So we want to extend series going forward on whether it's about writing, or whether it's about education resources, or whether it's about psychological do's and don'ts, or even taxes. But I don't know who will listen, but I think we should probably add that. and more so. And then we're not going to get into politics, but we do want to cover destinations like Hong Kong from a business point of view and how people are being impacted by politics, geopolitics. And of course, we'll touch on that in the US because there's going to be no end to that, I think. So I thank you for being on Global TV once again. Let's all say ciao and sayonara. And thank you for growing your global mindset with Global TV.